Welcome to Toy Polloi. Parental guidance. This video contains scenes of Lego destruction.
Hello and welcome to another video from Toy Polloi, and today we are delving into my bag of broken Star Wars figures to see what we can make. If you've not seen it before, I show this fairly often. This is a bag of figures that I keep. Every time I get a broken Star Wars figure, I stick it in this bag, and every once in a while there's enough pieces in here that I can make some complete figures out of them, and that is what I have here. These are the latest figures that I think I have enough of to actually make a figure that's going to be decent for display. So there's a lot of different things to fix in this pile. There's lots of heads broken off. We've got a couple of arms broken off. We've got a very odd R2-D2 with his legs stuck on. So let's just get on with the sort of fixing and see what we can make from this pile of pieces. So this is what we've got to work with today. We've got a selection of figures all with different issues. The first three at the bottom here all have broken off heads. Now that is a very common issue with figures from the Empire era onwards, because they changed the way the heads were attached. They changed it so that there was a post on the body, and that tends to snap off, and you end up with figures with that little post stuck inside the head. So here we have a reuse. Here's actually pretty nice looking figure, but with a head snapped off. We have here Squidhead, who we've got most of the capes for, but again the head is snapped off because it's exactly the same problem. And then we have an Imperial officer. This is a body that I've had for a while, and this is a head that I've been given recently, so it's not from the same figure. I think these actually are the heads for those figures. This one is a different head, but it has been snapped off at some point and someone has glued it, and it looks like there's some blue tack in there, so we've got to do a little bit of tidy up on that one, but I think that head will fit pretty nicely on that body. So that's one type of fix. Over here on the right we have a Han Solo from Endor, but this poor chap is missing a foot, and it turns out that I have another one here which is missing an arm and a head, but it does have the foot. So what I'm going to do is boil and pop on that, because the arm on this figure is not in amazing condition, so we are going to boil and pop the two legs on here, so we will end up with one Han Solo that actually looks pretty reasonable. At the back we have an 8D8 which seems to have had his arm snapped off. Now I've seen this figure with his head snapped off a few times, but I've actually never seen one with his arm snapped off, and I do happen to have his arm, so that is going to be an interesting fix. I think we'll probably have to drill and pin and glue it. It looks like someone at some point has had a go at gluing this, but obviously it hasn't worked. So that is going to be quite a fun fix, because I've not done that before. We just have to see what works. And then I have these two R2-D2s which have different issues. We've got this one here which has his legs broken off, and the chrome on the top of his head is in pretty shocking condition, but it looks like the little bits from his arms are still inside, so we can mend those. And then this one does actually look in really nice condition. The chrome is lovely, but the legs have been glued on, and I did actually briefly take this apart. I took the screw out of the bottom to see what's going on. It looks like someone's glued all of the pieces inside, so I'm not sure if we're going to be able to actually get that apart, but we might end up using the head of this one on the body of this one and repairing that and making one pretty reasonable looking one. So there we go. Those are all of the projects that we're going to be working on today. I think we'll start with doing the heads, because that should be the easiest and quickest of all of these fixes. So refixing the heads is something that I've shown many times before, and for that I used this piece of Lego, which is a Lego axle pin. I will put the number of this piece at the bottom of the screen, and we just have to drill a couple of holes. We're going to have to drill a hole into the top of the neck there, and into that we insert the Lego axle pin, and then we drill a hole into the head, which needs to be the same diameter as this pin, which I believe is 4.5 millimeters. Once that's all done, we can glue that into there, and then the head will just pop on, and you can then easily remove the head and swap them over, and it makes for good sort of customization. I've already done a bit of prep work on these, because the top of that post was just still a little bit proud, so I've just cut that off. I need to clean up this head because there's some bits of glue and looks like blue tack and stuff left in there from a previous repair, so I'm just going to scrape that out, and then I will get drilling holes. The first hole I drill will be smaller than the 4.5 millimeters that we need at the end, because I just want to drill a pilot hole just to make sure I can get everything lined up. I will drill pilot holes in all of these, and I'll do the same in the heads as well, just to make sure everything is sort of neatly lined up. And once I'm happy with that, I will drill the final hole, and this is the drill bit that I'm going to use, and as you can see that matches the diameter pretty closely. So let's get tidying up, and then we'll start some drilling. And there you go, that's all of the holes drilled and the Lego pieces are now in place. So what we've got to do next is actually glue these in, because at the moment they are a little bit loose, and when you pop the heads on you can actually pull the Lego posts out, and what we want is the Lego post firmly glued into the body. And then once we've glued it in, we need to just carefully cut off that little ring that's around the middle of the Lego piece. And the reason for that is it just sort of gets in the way. You could sort of countersink these pieces and drill slightly more in so that the heads sort of don't sit on that ring, but it just is a little bit more awkward to do. So I prefer just to glue them in and then cut that ring off, because if I show you at the moment, if I pop this head on, you can see, you can just about see that sort of ring of the Lego piece there, and it also makes the head sit a little bit high. So once we've glued that on and cut that ring away, that head will fit really nicely. On some figures it doesn't matter, like on Squid Head here, there's already a little bit of a sort of countersunk hole there on his head, so when we put his head on you can't actually see that. So you don't have to do it on every figure, but I tend to sort of chop it off on most of the figures. That way I can swap all of the heads and put any head I want on any figure I have repaired. So let's get these pieces glued in. I'm just going to use a little bit of super glue on the Lego piece, glue them in. Once that's dried, we can trim that piece off, and then those figures are all done. They just need a bit of a clean, because I didn't actually clean any of these figures before I started, and some of them are absolutely filthy. So let's get these all glued up and cleaned up, and then we can move on to the next ones. And there you go, that's all of the heads reattached using that Lego axle pin. And it just works really well, because it means you can still rotate the heads and pose them. But the great thing about this, which is what I've shown many times before, is that you can now swap these heads with ease. And there's nothing better than having an Imperial officer body with one of these on, because straight away we can make some really cool figures. So there we go, there's a Reese Imperial officer. I think that looks pretty fantastic. Or if we wanted, we could take the Squid head off, and there we go, we could have a Squid Head Imperial officer. It just means you can swap all of these heads around with ease. So any sort of combination that you want, we can make it. So we can make some new characters or background characters to go in Jabba's palace, or if we wanted to make some sort of weird mutant Imperial officer reuse, you know, there's that does look a little bit strange, but it's just a great way of fixing toys, and especially fixing Star Wars figures. I do this all the time. If I've got a broken Star Wars figure with a broken off head, I will repair it with Lego, because I can then start swapping things around. And even if I don't want to swap it around, you've got figures that are easily displayable again. No one would really know that any of these figures had been repaired, because they're still fully poseable. So there you go, that's the first of those figures fixed up. Let's move on to the next ones. The next job is a really simple one. That's just going to be swapping the legs on this Han Solo trench coat indoor version. The foot on this one is missing, and I have this one here which has a pretty reasonable leg. So we are going to be boiling and popping these, which means I'm going to boil up the kettle, put some just boiled water in a mug. We'll dunk these two figures in that water. That will soften up the plastic of the arms and the legs, and on the broken leg we can just pull that leg out. On this one we'll pull it out, and then using a screwdriver we will carefully push it back in. The plastic that's used on the arms and legs tends to go very soft very quickly, so it only takes sort of 10 to 30 seconds for the plastic to soften up, and then we should be able to remove these and swap them. So the boil and pop method is all we're going to use. So let's take these down to my kitchen, get the kettle boiled, and we'll swap these two legs over. And there we go, that is that figure back together. As you can see, it really is a simple process, and I've now got a figure that doesn't look too bad at all and can certainly be used for a display or maybe even some sort of customization or something like that. But yeah, that's a pretty reasonable looking figure. And these parts here I'm going to put back in my bag of spare pieces, because you never know, in future I may find another hand sailor that requires some pieces, maybe not that broken leg, but the other pieces are still very useful. Now this 8D8 as you can see has got a broken arm, and normally to fix something like that I would just drill some holes in either part and pin it, and because it's plastic I would like to use a bit of Lego, but his arms are incredibly thin, so the usual piece of Lego that I would use, which is this whip antenna, is just a bit too thick. This is about 2mm in diameter, so we're going to use a different piece of Lego, which is this little Lego lever. I'll put the name and the number of this piece at the bottom of the screen now, but it's a tiny little lever and it's just a little bit thinner than the whip antenna. In fact, it's just under 1.5mm in diameter, and you can remove this central piece just by pulling that out, and we're going to be using that as our pin. So what we need to do is drill a very small hole into this arm, exactly 1.5mm in diameter, which should just about match this. Then we can insert a piece of this piece of Lego in there. We'll do the same on the top, insert the other piece of the Lego in there, and that should fix everything together with a bit of glue. The problem with this arm is though that it's just very thin, so we're going to have to go very slowly drilling these holes. I've already got a 1.5mm drill bit in my pin vise here, so let's get drilling and see how neatly we can get this inserted. Hopefully everything will line up neatly, so let's just get drilling. And as you can see, that's as simple as it need be. So we've just got that little piece of Lego inside there, and I can easily remove the forearm at the moment because I've not glued anything in place, but everything is lined up really quite nicely, and I can see that's going to be a pretty strong bond. You do need this extra bit of support on something as thin as this. This arm had actually previously been glued. I can see the remnants of the glue on it, so someone had just tried to glue the two pieces back together, but that's never going to be strong enough. All it takes is a slight sort of bend and it will snap where the glue is. But now we've got that extra bit of support. The glue is just sort of holding everything together. The support is doing all of the work inside, and as you can see, we've got an 8D8 that will be ready for action again. So let's just add a little bit of glue to that post. I'm not going to actually even bother gluing in the top part of the post into the sort of shoulder part, because it's such a firm sort of grip in there. The hole is just about the right size, so that Lego piece is really firmly held in place. All I'm going to do is add a little bit of glue to this bottom part of the Lego piece, just a small amount on there like that, and then we will push the arm in place and let everything set, and that should be, that's all it needs, and we can have this back for display. That's looking good. You can see there's just a little bit of black showing through there. I'm not quite sure why that is. I think that might just be some refraction from the glue showing the black plastic underneath. If that still sort of is there when everything's dry, I might just put a little bit of paint over that, but otherwise everything is now held together firmly. So we'll just let that set, and I might add a little bit of paint just to hide it, but otherwise 8D8 is ready for action again. Now we come on to these two R2s, and they have sort of similar issues but different issues. This one has the legs broken off, and these aren't the legs that actually came with this R2-D2. I can see one of them has been glued at some point, but there's no glue residue on this R2, and they are clearly different colours. You can see the paint on them is different colours, but that doesn't matter. We can still put that one back together. This one, as I showed at the start, has a really nice dome, and again I think the legs must have broken off at some point and someone has glued it together. And I have previously taken this apart and all of the bits inside are glued as well. I'm not really sure what we're going to do with that one. I'm just going to take the screws out, see what's inside and see what I can do with it. Maybe I just have to break these legs off and we'll see if we can sort of prise out sort of the internal pieces, and you know, who knows what's going to happen with that. In the end we may just be able to use the dome, the rest of it is sort of junk, but I'm going to have a go. So let's get the screws out and see what happens and see what's inside both of these. Yeah, and then we'll find out which parts are actually usable. They actually came apart pretty easily, as I'd guessed that this one had been sort of all glued together, so just with breaking the glue I was able to get most of the parts out without damaging them. I did snap off one small part of this, which is the little part that holds the foot in place, but it shouldn't be a problem because the actual broken part is still stuck inside there. So once I put this all back together, it's just going to hold the leg in pretty normally, so that's not going to be an issue. And it's also interesting that I've sort of worked out why the head on this one doesn't fit properly. This has obviously been put together out of a few different pieces because this head doesn't actually fit on this body. There are a few different types of head on R2-D2. These are both the sensor scope versions, and one of the sensor scope versions has a slightly shorter post on the inside, so this head will actually fit on this one. It fits really snugly. But this head fits on the other one, so maybe at some point these toys have been taken apart and sort of put back together by different people, but you can see that head fits on that one, so I can actually make two pretty reasonable figures out of these just by swapping the heads over. We do need to repair the legs. Luckily we have all of the little broken pieces here, so I'm going to do a very quick repair on all of these. What I need to do is drill a very small hole into this. I need to drill a very small hole through this, and then I'm going to use a piece of a pin, just a normal everyday sewing pin, to reinforce that. So I'm going to put the pin through the hole, I'm going to put the pin in there, glue everything in place, and then cut the pin off. And what we'll end up with is this. This is one I've just repaired, so that's repairing that little post. I've shown it before on the channel, so I'm not going to show it in great detail now. And if you don't have those pieces, you can actually use a screw to replace this part. Again, I've shown that on the channel. It's basically pinning and gluing exactly how I showed on the 8D8 arm. We're just using a pin instead of a piece of plastic, so we're replacing the Lego piece with a pin. So let's get all of these legs repaired, and then we can start putting these figures back together. I've already printed out a replacement sticker for this one. Not sure if I will replace the sticker on this one, because I do actually like these sort of partially sort of damaged stickers. I think it really shows some age, and I'm wondering whether I should just quickly strip the paint off that, but we'll sort of worry about that once I've got all the legs repaired. So that's all of the legs repaired. As you can see, it doesn't really take very long at all. And while I was doing that, I also took the time to just quickly strip off some of the sort of hand applied paint. It looked like it was a silver marker pen or something that had been applied. And underneath you can see we've got this sort of quite nice orangey sort of peachy coloured dome. At some point I may repaint this and chrome it, but for now I actually think that looks quite nice. It's got quite a sort of unique finish to it. So we can now go ahead and put these back together. I've already done this one here. You can see he's looking pretty good. And this one I've just applied a replacement sticker. This is one of the stickers that I designed, so it's got some battle damage to it, like he's been blown up at the end of the sort of Death Star run in the first Star Wars movie. So we can use that body. Let's put the legs in. They should fit in pretty easily. This one has the broken piece still left in there, so it's going to be quite a tight fit, but that does fit in. That leg goes in that side. Got the little clicker here. I haven't bothered repairing the clickers. I do have a video showing how to repair those, but in this instance I'm just trying to put these figures together, so I've got some for potential future projects. So let's get all of these clicked together. Oh yeah, that's not too bad at all. It's looking pretty good. We've got the screw here. I've got my screwdriver. These are always a bit awkward to get the screws in because you've got to sort of lift the figure up, put them in like that. And there we go. We've got another figure put together. So we've got two fairly beaten up R2-D2s, but I really like the look of them. I'm not going to replace the sticker on that one because it just looks pretty nice. It looks like it's had a bit of a sort of life. Someone's really enjoyed playing with it. And then we've got this one with this sort of custom sticker and very battered dome. I actually like astromechs looking like this, so much so I have loads of them. In fact, I'll bring in some of my really beaten and broken up astromech droids. We've got R5-D4s and R2-D2s all wanting to fall over. Let me just stand all of those up. You can see I've got quite a selection of them. They're all a bit busted, they're all a bit worn, all a bit battered, but they've all had a life, and I think they look absolutely fantastic. So maybe I will fix these up properly in future, but for now I've just added two more broken and busted R2-D2s to my collection. I think they're looking lovely. And here we go. Here are the 7 figures that I've managed to put back together today. And these have all come from this bag of broken Star Wars figures. It's just something I like to do. I don't like to see figures left to be sort of thrown away. And I know that over time I will find enough pieces to fix the rest of the ones in this bag. But for now, these are 7 figures that have been saved from being thrown away. None of them are mint, but they've all got a really nice look to them. And they'll be useful for putting in vehicles or putting in dioramas, or maybe customizing, or maybe I will come back and fully restore some of these at a future date. But for now, these figures have been saved from my bag of junk. If you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And if you've really enjoyed it, then why not think about supporting the channel by becoming a Patreon or YouTube channel member. You get early access to all of my restoration videos and access to an exclusive series called On the Cutting Mat, where I show different fixes that you don't normally see here on the channel. So have a think about that, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Toy Polloi. Subscribe for more great videos.